Hi everyone, my name is Virginia Hermanson and I work for the Nature Conservancy of Canada. Today I'm at the Wycliffe Conservation Complex and I'm going to tell you a bit about an ecological restoration forest thinning project that took place over the past year. So the Wycliffe Conservation Complex, or the complex as I'll refer to it, is a partnership between the Nature Conservancy of Canada, the Nature Trust of BC, and the Provincial Ministry of Water, Land and Resource Stewardship. It's made up of over 1,100 hectares of conservation land in 23 different parcels. The Wycliffe Conservation Corridor is an ecologically important area. It has a diversity of different habitat types, it's an important wildlife corridor, and it's also home to 3 federally listed species at risk. These include American badger, Lewis's woodpecker, and Williamson sapsucker. All of these species are threatened largely due to habitat loss and habitat change over time. In the Rocky Mountain Trench specifically, forests are much denser and overgrown than they used to be historically. And this is due to changes in forestry practices, colonization, and the subsequent banning of fire as a land management tool. Over the last several decades, wildfire suppression has become so effective that wildfire suppression agencies have essentially eliminated wildfire as a natural disturbance regime on the landscape. So these ecosystem restoration treatments, the goal was to open up the forest, remove the smaller diameter trees, and try and help this forest transition towards a more historic forest structure and composition. So I'm standing in front of one of the treatment units here. This is on the Ministry of Water, Land and Resource Stewardship parcel within the complex. And as you can see behind me, the treatment's almost complete. Many of the small diameter firs have been thinned out and they'll be piled and burned. So that's one of the main treatment objectives, is to reduce the density of small diameter conifer trees throughout the forest. Again, looking to create that more open forest landscape, or perhaps in some cases a treed grassland. So in terms of species composition, we want to retain all western larch and trembling aspen trees. These would have been more typical of a historic species composition, and this treatment is trying to help the forest move towards that type of historic composition and structure. So our desired outcome overall is to see a ponderosa pine and western larch leading coniferous forests, which with much larger tree spacing, lower density of small trees, and in addition, helping create some wildfire resiliency in this forest as well. So this type of thinning treatment has many benefits ecologically. First and foremost, we're looking to create habitat more suitable to the American badger and Lewis's woodpecker by providing a more open coniferous forest. As I've mentioned, we're also trying to help this forest transition to having more historic forest structure, so wider tree spacing, larger veteran trees, as well as a more historic tree species composition. So that's with retaining the trembling aspen and the western larch, and having this be a ponderosa pine and western larch leading forest. In addition, one component of the prescription was to create small piles of medium diameter logs or tree stems, and this is to create habitat for different types of small mammals. And lastly, this type of treatment also increases the wildfire resilience of this type of forest. So certainly tree spacing helps with fire resiliency. And also if you pause and take a look at some of the trees behind me, you'll notice that for the first 2 meters of the stem, all the tree branches have been limbed off. So that helps fire stay on the ground and prevents fire from climbing up into a tree before these types of species have been able to grow enough bark to develop some of their wildfire resilience, which is characteristic of all the tree species in this forest. So there's numerous collaborators who've been working together to make projects like this possible on the Wycliffe Conservation Complex. These include, of course, the 3 partners, the Nature Conservancy of Canada, the Nature Trust of BC, and the Ministry of Water, Lands and Resource Stewardship. Mark Trudeau of the Rocky Mountain Trench Natural Resources Society has been acting as project manager for this type of project on the complex over the last 2 years, and he was a huge initiator of this particular project. And then of course the contractor who did the thinning work out in the forest, and that's Maple Leaf Forestry, who we were working with out of Cranbrook, and they've been a huge positive contributor to the completion of this project. One of the positive lessons learned after completing this project was realizing that the partners have capacity to do more of this type of ecosystem enhancement work around the complex. They'll be looking to do more forest thinning in the coming years for the benefit of American badger and Lewis's woodpecker. In addition, in the coming year, the partners will work to develop and implement a recreation management plan in an effort to reduce the potential negative impacts that recreation can have on sensitive ecosystems, including those present at the Wycliffe Conservation Complex.